All right. Welcome everyone to the monthly live stream. I'm just going to do my normal checks to make sure audio is working and pull up the list of questions. So just give me a few minutes. If anyone's tuned in or as you guys trickle in, definitely, I should engage more with the community. So let me know who you are, where you're from, because these are live streams. Of course, if you have any questions, definitely ask them here and we can engage in real time. Let me actually close this. As usual, if you have questions as well, this is not in real time, but you can always submit questions over there. That's where I try to collate all the questions that I get. So it makes my life easier whenever I come to these live streams. I can just pull from that list and answer questions. So definitely submit your questions there as they come in. Let me do a quick audio check. Looks like the streams. Yep, audio looks good. Okay. I think everything else is ready. Okay. All right, let's just jump right in. We're going to start with the list of questions that have been submitted. And the first one, let me pull it in to the screen so you guys can see here. Oh, there's a comment from Vish. Vish says, can I highlight the comments in here? Oh, I cannot. Oh, he basically said, when are we starting? Hey, 1 second. Let me just respond to this. Starting now. So now. A few minutes late. Okay, let's get started. So the first question looks like it's about bioinformatics. Let me. Looks like there's a name on this one too. So I post a name. So here is the question. Hopefully this works. Okay, perfect. That works. Okay, so the very first question is from Janesh. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. And question is, for a data analyst with zero experience in bioinformatics, what learning path do you recommend to familiarize with domain? Projects, courses, certificates? Yeah, it's a very good question. And I probably don't have like a very salient answer. I think the very first thing to start off with is getting a understanding of what bioinformatics entails, or rather, what do you like? Thinking about what interests you, and then thinking about what are all the things that bioinformatics entails. And I say that because there's a lot of different things in bioinformatics, and I think it's such a vague term. It's really hard to make any recommendations unless you know what you kind of want to do. And maybe what I'll share here is, let me see, biomedical informatics definition. I'm going to pull up a white paper from AMIA. Let me share my screen so you guys can see it. I've made references to this many times in the past, but in 2012, they put out this definition of biomedical informatics. And the reason why I pull this up is because they have a nice diagram. Go here. Where's the diagram? Not this one. That kind of breaks a lot of it down into something more tangible. And I think this is a really good paper to read in general. It gives you an idea of like what are the types of activities you would do within these different domains. Where is it? Oh, is this not the right paper? No, it is. I think I split it a little differently. Well, we can use this one. I thought there was another diagram, but maybe it is this one. So biomedical informatics, I like to use this because it breaks it down into these nice types of domains, if you will. And so here, there's bioinformatics, and I don't know if this is the same bioinformatics you're talking about. There's imaging informatics. There's this like informatics and translational science. There's health informatics, which includes clinical informatics and public health informatics. So if you're asking about what learning path, I think it's figuring out which one of these you would be most interested in, because the paths to each one of these areas is very different. And to just quickly elaborate a little bit of it, if you like a lot of like genetics, computer sciencey, you're deeper in the technical weeds, heavy into research, bioinformatics seems to be, I mean, all these is like there's a lot of overlap. So let me just say that first. There's a lot of overlap, but they have much more I think more research based things, and it's down at this like molecular level. So if you like that, uh, researching new genes and genetics, things like that, it's bioinformatics. Um, and then the imaging informatics is like radiology. I usually think of that as like radiology, probably a lot of like imaging analysis. So like looking at X-rays, MRIs, CTs, and using applying AI uh, to detect if like there's a cancer or not, or if the cancer is malignant or benign, things like that. So of course, a background in some radiology helps. AI, so computer science, statistics, and math. That's kind of the background here, if you like that. But it's still more so on this like tissues, organs, and cells kind of area. Now, my training is more so on this area to the right, where and down here you can see it's more focused on patients, individuals, and populations. So my background is in pharmacy, and a lot of folks who do informatics that I know of are in this like health informatics, clinical informatics space. So clinical informatics breaks down to like nursing, dental, physicians, and pharmacists. That's a big bulk majority of them. And the background and training there is usually you go from a clinical background, some type of healthcare professional, and then you go into informatics afterwards. So in that case, that's a very different learning path than this. Less technical, much more healthcare oriented. So backgrounds on like biology, chemistry, nutrition, things like that. And then there's population public health, which is more focused on populations, like larger groups. And I think a lot of that is usually in like big public health measures, immunization registries, state health information exchanges. Um, Also, a bit of a different background, and I think that in that case, it's not always like a healthcare professional. It's more so like a um, public health background, things like that. So I think really thinking through which one of these like resonate with you, and the paper does a better job of just what I said. So just go read the paper, get an idea of what types of activities these entail, what things you do, and then they also talk about like different things you can like learn about to familiarize with your field. So hopefully that's interesting. I think that's the very first thing before jumping into anything is what I would recommend. So let me stop sharing that. Uh, we have a question on the live. Vish says, "When are you?" Let me hold on. Let me stop this. When are you visiting Boston? I would like to meet over coffee and discuss healthcare and technology. Yeah, I have a travel schedule. Let me post it here. And guys are curious, this is my travel schedule. I'll be traveling quite often this year, largely every 2 times every month at minimum. So this is like kind of my schedule. So Boston on here is June 18 to June 21st. So in like, what is that? 1, 2, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I will send you a message to let you know if our schedule aligns. I think there is a day that's a holiday during that time. So June 19th is a holiday. That probably would be the most ideal day. I'll be working on June 18th and 20th, so it might be a little busy on that day. But if you're free June 19th, I'll be in Boston. That's my day off, and then we could probably link up to have coffee and chat. Okay, let's go to the next question. And actually, while we're doing this, let me play a little bit of music. There we go. Okay, cool. Makes it like a coffee chat kind of vibe. Next question. Looks like. Hopefully this is not too long of a question. This fits. Oh, nope, it does not fit. Let me just grab the question part. Okay, I'm just going to share the question. There you go. I'm going to read the beginning of the question because it's not long enough. So the question is, there's no name on this one, so I don't know the name. It says, "Hi Brian, I am planning to take the Fire R4 Proficiency Certification exam next week. Best of luck, by the way. It's exciting. And I'm going through your live streams. I found that you recently completed the certification. So can you please share the details related to the exam, question pattern, difficulty level?" So I think the first thing is all of us who take the exam can't really talk about the exam. It's like Fight Club. We can't chat in detail about certain things on the exam. That would just break that contract that I signed. But what I can say is the things I use to study for the exam, and I'll talk about that. I can talk a little bit about the difficulty as well, but I can't. Well, I guess you say question pattern. I maybe talk a little bit vaguely about the question itself. So let me see if I can just pull up the exam so everyone has something to look at. Where is the certification exams? Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again so you guys can see. So HL7, this is their website. They have certifications. So the question here is about HL7 Fire. I wonder, I guess, do they still have the same one? Yeah, they do. They still have it. Okay, Fire Proficient. Okay, so I'll make a couple of comments first before directly answering your question. Just as a reminder that HL7 has a new exam that will replace this one. And this, when I say this one, I mean the HL7 R4 Proficiency Certificate. This is going to be retired December 2024. So just as an FYI, and this is the one that is being asked in the question. They have a new exam called the Fire Foundations, which was in pilot last month, or actually 2 months ago now. A lot of people took it in April, so they're currently analyzing it to determine the cutoffs for the passing and then just the level of questions. That will be the brand new exam for HL7. And the thing is, it's really hard to find on their website. You can navigate to the website. I have a video about it if you guys want to see it, but might as well just post it. That's what these AMAs are for anyways. Let me just grab the video real quick. It's called HL7 Fire Foundation, and it's a series of exams where the foundation is the baseline, and then there is these additional exams, these advanced ones that teach you specific skills that you should know in fire, which is architect role, there's analyst role, there's let me just show the video actually since I have it. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Now this is my video if you guys want to look it up if you're curious about the foundation exam. There's additional, this is more like the foundation, then there's the architect, developer, analyst, and profiler. I bring this up because it'll help answer part of the question. So if I go back to the R4 exam, you have two questions kind of here. One is the details, which I think I'm just going to not answer that question because you're not allowed to talk about the exam. What I will talk about to your other two questions with question pattern and difficulty level is because they're kind of listed on the website. So just sharing what HL7 is sharing. And they have this study sheet right here. And this is what I used, and it's also what the course teaches. So sorry for jumping around. There is a comprehensive HL7 Fire Proficiency Exam course, which is what I took. I found it very helpful. They go through pretty much all the same content that's on that study guide, it's just preparing for the exam as expected. So 4 weeks, I went to the course and then I did the exam afterwards. And they went through all of these. And if anything, they did more useful, practical information. The only caveat with that is that it's not on the exam. The exam is, I can't be very specific. I would just recommend going through all this. Let's just say that it tests your ability to really know things that's in the spec itself. And when I say in the spec, like if you go to, they have, a big part of it's on resource concepts, right? So if you go through the resource itself, you should be able to know things on every one of these web pages on the HL7 Fire website, like literally everything. You should know it really, really well. So flashcards, which is what I used quite a bit to study, is a great way to prepare for the exam. But the best way to study, what I did for especially resource concepts, because it was 20% of an exam, is just read through the whole thing. And I think that's the best way to study for this exam. You just need to memorize everything. Everything you see here, go through every single page that you see linked and read it. And I think that's the best way to prepare. The question patterns, I don't know if they talk about that here, actually. Let me see if yeah, here it is. So the question patterns, they talked about it, are multiple choice, multi-select, and true and false. And I can confirm that. Those are the types of questions you get. There are 50 exams, you get 2 hours, and you only need a 70% to pass. The difficulty level, so to give background that's relevant to everyone, I had about a year and a half of practice, like working with fire. So that's one. So I come from that. I have the 4-week fire exam, the comprehensive fire exam course I took. And then 2 years ago, I took the fire fundamentals course. And then I just did self-study. So with all of those, I thought the difficulty level is maybe moderate. And it's moderate because it's either you know it or you don't. And you really just have to like read through all the pages and memorize everything. The more you memorize, the better you are. So, and what I try to say to that is like the practical experience of using fire is less helpful than just pure memorization. If you look at the study guide, there are things about fire licensing, right? It's 4% of the exam. From a practical standpoint, it's not like you're implementing the license. So best way to study, read through everything, unfortunately. That is very different than the Fire Foundation exam, which requires you to have like they don't require you. They recommend 6 months of experience working with fire. And I thought that exam was much easier because you have to have worked with fire to really answer those questions. If anything, I thought that was easier. Okay, I think hopefully that answered your question. Best of luck on the exam. It's great. We have a question on here. Oh, this is from YouTube. Cool. JFax says, "Oh, Jenish. Hey, Jenish. You're the one that asked the question. So great to see you on here." Says, "Thanks, Brian. I'll give the AMIA paper a read." Yeah, let me know what you think afterwards. It's such a broad field. There's so many areas you can go into, and maybe I'll break it real quick. One more comment on that, as I just thought of it, is I like to think of bioinformatics as this large umbrella, and then the areas you might be interested in, maybe think about 3 things. One is like this very computer sciencey but slight focus on computer science, but with a slight interest in healthcare, right? That's one area. So you're very technically savvy. Then there's this like biomedical informatics space, which is like kind of a blend of both. Like you're a little bit of healthcare, a little bit of computer science, and then there's like a very strong healthcare background where you're like very familiar domain experts in a certain part of healthcare, and then you're interested in computer science. Like if you break it down in those three areas, you can probably find the right path that you want to go down. But definitely check out the AMIA paper. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Alan has a question on the live. Hey, Alan, how's it going? Alan's a fellow pharmacy informaticist. Let me add your question to the... I wish it showed up on LinkedIn so I can add it there, but it doesn't. So Alan has a question. Okay. So let's move over to Alan's question. So Alan says, glad to see you're doing well. It's been a while since we last met. I think it was our PGY 2 year at ASHP mid-year. Man, that was a long time ago. Is that 2014 or 2015? I think 2014, because it would have been December. It's a long time ago, 10 years ago, huh? Time flies. How has your transition been being in a Epic-centric role at a health system to a private health tech sector? That's a good question. Yeah, it's a really good question. So in no specific order, I can make a couple of comments. I think the first comment is that it's been very... Let me start with... Should I start with the maybe negative or bad positives? I'll start with the negatives first. The first thing is it's been very challenging. And I think first, one variation of this is just that whenever you go to a new industry or start a new job, it's just different, right? There's a lot of on-the-job training and there's a lot of like growing pains. But going to like something I was not even very familiar with, like it's much more technical, especially the position that I applied for. It was very challenging. And the negative there is that I just ended up working a lot. For the first maybe 3 months, I was averaging somewhere between 60 to 80 hours a week, sometimes up to 100. Not that I was working, but more so that I was just trying to learn as much as I can after work. And my primary role in the first 3 months was actually just to learn. It was very nice. They gave me the opportunity to just learn in the first few months. And so I took advantage of that and just learned everything I can. And I just, there was a lot. It's like drinking out of the fire hose. So that's the very first thing. It was very challenging because there's a lot of stuff I just didn't know. And perhaps it was what I said earlier. The position that I applied for, which is a data architect, has very specific roles. And I think because I've never done a lot of stuff as a data architect, it was just very challenging. So I just had to learn a lot. That's the first thing. I think the second thing, which is much more obvious now than it was before, is I applied in 2022. And that was probably nearing the end of this like free money or cheap money, lower interest rate type era. And I say that because tech was booming. It was very easy to get very great offers compensation wise, and very easy to get it because there was just such a high demand for tech workers. So I came in a time when that was happening. But within a few months of coming, the economy changed, high interest rates, everything got expensive, inflation, things like that. And this goes into the second con, which is the amount of layoffs is very difficult to think about because you're always worried about whether or not you're going to be laid off the next day. And you see some of these, I'm sure you've seen them like online. You just, the day you get laid off, everything, you lose access You don't get to talk to anyone. You just like shuts off. It's pretty traumatic. And I've had a lot of colleagues get laid off in not only in my own company but like outside of the company. It's kind of rough. So coming from a health system perspective, people work there like sometimes their entire lives. Going to tech is like very different because of that. So layoffs is like I think it takes a toll on your mental health. And even now, the economy is still a high inflation environment. It's better, but it always weighs on my mind. That's probably the second con. I think the third con is more so that maybe it's tech. The tech area or the tech industry is definitely much more tech centric, right? Is tech industry, so it's much more like engineering focused versus like a health system, which is like healthcare focused. And I think a big comment there is that sometimes it feels a little foreign because you're not working with colleagues, your fellow nurses, physicians, your NPPAs and pharmacists. And most of the time now we work more so with engineers, which is a great thing because that's what the industry we're working in, but it's sometimes harder to relate. So, and then let's say I'm saying all these cons, but this is a very great question. So I'm spending time on it. I think the other con with that is you're further removed from direct patient care. I think the impact you have in like health systems, we're in healthcare for a reason. We want to help patients. And then I think tech is just a further step removed. So yeah, we're helping patients. It's just a little further away than it would be if you were working for a hospital. And I think sometimes you miss some of that. So those are some of the cons. I think there's like 4 cons there. I'll say some things about the bright side is the first comment hopefully will be the most salient, which is even if I got laid off within the first 4 or 5 months of joining, I would have no regrets. And I think this is something that happens with a lot of people, especially my friends that I talk to who are in health systems still, that you have golden handcuffs in health system. It's really hard to leave. You feel comfortable, you feel safe. This is all you've learned, and you're good at your job. And I feel as though the choice I made to take the risk to a completely different industry has, even despite all the negatives, has been very exciting. It's a new challenge. I personally love learning, and I think it has opened up so many unique doors and perspectives and that I'm so excited for. I truly mean that. So even if I got laid off in the first 4 or 5 months, yeah, it would have sucked. But I genuinely have zero regrets of leaving health systems because the other side has been so interesting from a learning perspective, from a growth potential. Tech also pays usually a lot better. So even from a financial perspective, it's been great. I think that's one of the best decisions I've made. The second thing is like I think tech moves very fast, which is to be expected. Hospitals and healthcare, you tend to move a little slower. So in tech, things are just very fast paced. You try things, doesn't work, you move on. Try things, doesn't work, you move on. They move very fast, and I like that. It's maybe similar to like instant gratification. You just build things and you keep going. The third thing is maybe that, in tech, you work on the like newest stuff out there, the shiniest objects. So you get the opportunity to really like dive deep and dive into these like fun areas like AI. And I think that's just so exciting. I think in a hospital system, for good reason, you do things that are like already established best practice because you want to make sure you give good, consistent, quality patient care. In tech, we try things and then we iterate and you find something that works and then you expand on that. So I really like that side of it. Maybe I'll just end by saying tech, similar to like informatics in hospitals, is very flexible. There's so much flexibility in where you work, how you work, things like that. As long as you meet your deadlines, you're good. I'll stop there because I've been spending a lot of time on that question. But thanks for the question, Alan. I hope you've been doing well. Stop that. And now probably answer just maybe 1 or 2 more questions and then call it a day on the live stream because we're a little bit over already. Let me look for the next question on here. Okay. This is a pretty long question. Let's see. How am I going to share this? Hopefully this is long enough. Okay, perfect. Okay, this works. So the question's pretty long, so I'm just gonna read the whole thing and then I'll give the main question here, even though it cuts off part of it. So the question is, hi Brian, I've Googled a lot regarding the CDC Fire 101 and 102 courses, but was unable to find anything. Can you please give me a link to those? Oh, you know what? I didn't even realize I'm still sharing my screen. Whoops. CDC, I'm reading the question. Was unable to find anything. Can you please give me a link to those trainings? I also checked the HL7 and Fire Fundamentals on their website, but these are huge costs. Can't afford any free solutions and resources to understand the basics from a clinical background. Thanks in advance. Yeah, so let me see if it's even available online somewhere. Fire 101. I don't know if it's hard to find. Well, coincidental to this question, I just got back from a dinner 2 days ago where the person who authored those trainings I met, which is great. And that person told me that the trainings are actually also on YouTube. So what I'll do here is, I haven't found the videos, but I haven't looked for them. I'll look for the videos and then I'll send them to you. And then maybe I'll make a video about it, because the thing about those trainings, and I guess I talked about them in the past, is of all the fire trainings and educational resources I've seen online, those 2 resources have been by far the best for learning fire, because the fire trainings I've seen, it's just so technical, full of technical jargon. It's very hard to digest, and the materials are, I don't know, it's very dry. So you have to be you have to teach it in a certain way. Let's put it that way. And then the videos that I saw from CDC, I took 2 of them. There's like CDC Fire 101 and then there's Fire 102. Both have been hands down the best trainings that I've ever seen so far. So I will find those and then share it. Hopefully I can find the YouTube video and share that. Otherwise, I think you actually have to have registered for that webinar to get those trainings. The next part of your question is the huge cost. Yeah, the training certificates are pretty expensive. And then if anyone's curious, just because you're watching this, give you an example. This is the course I took for when I was first learning fire, is this one. No, actually, fun fact, I was learning fire back in 2017, but it was very short-lived. I probably spent a month on it, and then I switched to V2 because, fire wasn't heavily adopted at the time, and I wanted to better understand V2. So I was learning V2 back in 2017, but I did do a month of fire back then. Anyways, side tangent. So if I go here, the cost of this one, HL7 members $450, $60, $75 for non-members. I don't know if you qualify for one of these. If you're in one of those like lower or middle income countries, it's a little cheaper. Still relatively expensive, even if you are. Fire Fundamentals is really expensive. $975 for non-members. $650 for members, and then for the lower and middle income countries is $400 to $500. So yeah, very expensive. In terms of free resources, it's a good question. I don't know that many that are great. The best ones I've seen is like the one I shared before. The CDC Fire 101 and 102 were free resources. You just have to register for the webinar, and it's free. The other ones I've seen that are really good are just the free resources on YouTube. So there's a bunch of YouTube videos on Fire, some better than others, but some of the ones that I found, I think Firely has some pretty good ones. Let me see if I can find some of them on here. Fire education. Yeah, I'll share my screen. I would recommend YouTube. YouTube has so many videos on Fire. Like there's this whole one about Fire here. Like there's like Fire here. Firely. Firely is a group that does a lot of fire education. So definitely check out the ones from Firely. I was hoping that there was one from this dude. There's a guy that does a lot of fire videos. I've seen some from Gino. It doesn't seem like he posts anymore, but he did a lot of like intro to fire videos that might be helpful. I obviously have some, but not even. Oh, here it is. This is the one I was looking for. This guy, James Agnew. I saw this, I think 2 years ago, and it comes up every now and then, but highly recommend. It's a pretty long video, and I think it's great. But when you're asking for free resources, the best place I've seen most of them have been on YouTube. They weren't courses, they were just on YouTube. So definitely check that out, and hopefully you can find what you're looking for. All right, we are 15 minutes over. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna call it a day on this live stream, and then we're popping next month. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. Oh, okay, hold on. There's some live stream questions. I'll finish the live stream questions. Let's see. Let me go down the list. I'll answer the rest of the live stream questions, and then we will call it wraps for today. So let's see. First question is from Steven. What's up, Steven? Do you think it is beneficial to go from Epic to other health tech, or could a clinical pharmacist leapfrog into health tech skipping Epic? Yeah, that's a good question. If there's a will, there's a way, right? There's a lot of people I've seen, actually quite a few that I've seen that has gone from like clinical pharmacists, be it Epic or Cerner or health system or non-EHR, just like a healthcare professional going into tech. That's not uncommon. I think that a lot of people in those roles, there's a position I posted, I think a couple months ago that was like that, but they exist all over the place. That one was a consumer health clinical specialist role. And to answer your question more directly, the answer is yes. And I think usually what that manifests as is you're almost like a consultant to health tech companies. You're like the subject matter expert. You kind of advise the tech companies on the products that they build. So similar to actually what you're doing at Epic, where you tell the informatics team, hey, I need a new order set, or I need this new feature or functionality. You're doing the same exact thing, except you do that full time. You're not actively practicing, even though some of the physicians that I've worked with are still actively practicing. They practice, and then they also not as much, like maybe 1 or 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time is just spent advising and ideating and brainstorming with the engineers and product managers to build something. So actually, that's not even your question. I'm just rereading it. Do you think it's beneficial? I think it's up to you. I think I didn't even answer your question correctly. If you're looking for a more tech role, and I'm not talking about a tech industry, in tech there is technical roles and there's non-technical roles. I'm in a more technical role. I know a lot of pharmacists who have made the jump to health tech, but they're not in technical roles. I actually don't see many pharmacists in technical roles or other healthcare professionals in technical roles. Most of the clinical people I see are actually in non-technical roles. And those roles usually are like account manager, product manager, program manager, or even just like a clinical specialist subject matter expert role. So I think it's beneficial only if you're interested in if going into like a technical role, because I think there's a lot you can learn from being on the back end of Epic. So being more in an informatics role. It helps a lot. Because like you're building a lot of similar solutions. So having an idea of how Epic approaches problems or just any other like EHR vendor is very helpful. But if you don't care about that, then I don't think it's like necessary or like super beneficial. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Walk me through your typical day, and then walk me through a typical day in your 30s compared to your 20s. Oh man, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that question ever. Sounds like a good title for a video. So, typical day. That's a good question. Let me look at last week. So last week, in a given day, let's use an 8-hour day. In a given 8-hour day, I probably spend, looking at just last week, for 4 out of the 5 days last week, I spent about 6 hours in meetings, and they're all different meetings. Meetings with either product managers, meetings with engineers, meeting with our own teams, meeting with our clinical specialists, just to like, I don't know, we're working towards something. So my role is an architect, and I work across a lot of different teams. And so I meet with a lot of people to make sure everyone's aligned, in the big scheme of things. I make sure everyone's aligned. So I meet with a lot of people, and I spend a decent amount of time in meetings. It's pros and cons. I'm unable to do more like hands down work because there's so many meetings, and sometimes it just bleeds into the evenings and stuff because I'm trying to get stuff done. So most of my typical day is just meetings. I meet with people. The other part of the day, I spent a lot of time last week. Let me see if this here. Maybe, especially on Friday, which is yesterday, I only had one meeting. It was very nice. I spent this one bled into the evening because it was really fun. About 12 hours coding. I was coding, or I was implementing something that I designed, and it was very fun. I can't talk in detail about what that is, but I was basically coding. So I spent like 10 hours or so just coding in Python. That was pretty fun. That's probably like a typical day, just meetings and coding and hands down work on stuff. I spent a lot of time on Fire, so I read. Actually, I should have said that. I spent a lot of time reading, lots of time reading. There's always like stuff to learn, and I'm reading stuff about Fire usually. Last question. Walk me through a typical day in your 30s compared to your 20s. 20s, I was in, if you talk about pharmacy school, which was like 22 to 26. If you consider that, that's my 20s. I was in the library all the time. That's all I did. Pharmacy school is just legit 24/7 studying. That's all I did is study. And a big difference maybe is studying and fast food versus now I'm still studying, but not fast food. That's like one big difference. And then the difference from 20s and now is also like I spend a lot of time traveling. So I posted my travel schedule earlier, but I think because the job is so flexible, I spend a lot of time traveling to different cities. I didn't have that kind of money to do that in my 20s at all. And if you think traveling is expensive, I usually just fly Spirit or Frontier, so very cheap things. But I didn't even have that kind of, you know, 40 or $50 to spare on a plane ticket back in my 20s. Because I had no money. And then now I think I spend more time mentoring people in my 30s than my 20s. I spend a lot of time like at work, outside of work, usually mentoring people. And in 20s, I was more so like soaking things in. Not to say I don't have mentors now, because I do. I have a lot of people I still learn from. But yeah, I don't know. That's studying and bumming off food from Google campuses. You know, I got some good food. It's pretty fun. Eat great and do work. Anyways, all right. Thanks, Kevin, for the question. Hope you all having a lovely Saturday and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll probably spend a little bit more time coding again because the coding stuff is kind of fun. Well, I will catch you guys next month, or maybe you'll see me more soon because I plan on doing some more live streams with coding.